what you probably do when you review hands is you look them up in the solver to see if you made the correct play or not. Here's what I tell my students though instead. Bro, you need to learn how to and get good at thinking on your own, especially under pressure. Because when it gets hard, you hide. You hide behind your HUD, your solver study, your RNG, and it's so much more comfortable than sitting in reality of not knowing what's best. And don't get me wrong, I've spent countless hours in solvers and it's an absolutely amazing tool. But if you catch yourself making decisions while you're playing though, that starts with something like that you have to or that you should in theory do X or Y, that's the alarm bell that you have stopped thinking. And I'm going to make a pretty bold claim. I'm going to claim that you are scared. Scared of being wrong, scared of being exploited, scared of being judged, scared of not actually knowing what to do and still having to make a decision. That's when I believe that you pretend that you have to call or fold or bet or whatever because of theory. And if you take one thing away from this video, I want it to be this. You don't really have to do anything. So get down from your high theoretical horse and let me walk you through a hand to show you what I mean. This is another heads up pot. I'm sorry, I know a lot of you want short-handed or six-max content out there, but I wanted to make this video about thinking and thought process and trusting in your own thinking and practicing your own thinking. And I think this hand is just a pretty good example, since when I played this hand, I remember I spent about 90 seconds plus, like almost 2 minutes, the full time bank in the river, thinking it through. So I think it's a good example, and it's also a pretty cool hand. All right, so this is against a very good player. I wouldn't say he's like a heads-up expert, but he's definitely a good battling regular. It's played at 1020 with an ante, and we are like super deep here. We're almost 300 BB deep. So he decides with the ante to open for 3x on the button, which is obviously fine. I call with the queen 7 suited. Flop comes 9-7-6 with a flush draw. We check, and he checks behind. So turn is another 7. So we hit trips. We can lead here. I like checking though, because I think it's more fun. I want to see what he does, and I want to react to it if possible. He delays c-bets, pretty big, like a 3/4 pot. He can definitely go smaller here if he wants to, but 3/4 pot kind of makes sense. He does have a good amount of 7x checking back the flop, so that's going to be like the bulk of his value range here. Queen 7, for me at least, is kind of in between, like calling and raising both are fine. If I had a7, I would definitely lean more into raising, but queen kicker is still pretty good enough for me to raise here. So I raise pretty big, like 5x almost. He calls. The river is interesting. It's a 10 of clubs, bringing in the 4 straight now. So we can do two things here. We can bet small and still bet some of our 7x hands, or we can size up a little bit, base our betting range more around the straights and boats. So I bet about 20% pot. I like doing this because it puts a lot of his hands still in a kind of a shitty spot. Like even if he has a weak 7x here, it's just basically a pure bluff catcher, and it puts pressure on all of his one pair hands. To be honest, even his straights are kind of put in a annoying situation where he wants to put more money into the pot by raising, but that means he also opens up the pot to be re-raised. I'm definitely not capped here. He is well aware that I do like to put some nutted hands into these small river probes or river bets to kind of go for bet re-raises, especially deeper. So what happens here though is that he doesn't go for a raise repping kind of 8x or straights. He goes for a shove. If you're in a spot like this and your thinking immediately goes to something like how often you have to call here to not overfold, or what combos kind of unblocks the most bluffs, or you use an RNG to make your decision with any combination. And I'm not talking about Queen 7, I mean any combination, more or less. Unless you're playing three-handed on like 25-50 plus against the same opponents every day for hours and hours, month after month, and you've considered just about everything there is to consider in this spot, using an RNG or spending any energy, whether or not you're overfolding and being paranoid about that, that just shouldn't be a part of your thought process here at all. If you want to get better, I coach a small group of players privately. I don't do hourly sessions, and I only work with people more long term that I actually want to talk poker with every day. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, to have me by your side available every single day, you can find out in the description how you can reach out to me, and we'll take it from there to see if we could be a good fit. Okay, so with that out of the way, my philosophy towards getting really good at this game is also what I do together with all of my students is practicing thinking when playing. Mostly reviewing your thought process as well when you are reviewing hands without denying any solver output. It's just an amazing tool, but we don't want to skip over whether or not it's even too relevant against our real opponent in the hand. So let me walk you through what I was thinking about this spot against this opponent. Number one, he didn't bet the flop. This hand was played just after a ring game broke, and we're just playing two hands of heads up here. I don't think this player is gonna check back flopped top hands like sets and two pairs and straights, even close to enough. Whenever a ring game breaks and we are 300 BB deep, on its own it's not a strong enough assumption, obviously, to make a decision only based on that, but for me it has a place at least. With that assumption, the main hand he will have here is gonna be 10-7. 10-7 will often check back the flop. It will always bet the turn and always call my raise on the turn, and it's definitely good enough to jam here on the river. Number two, the 300 BB shove itself was within 10 seconds. I've seen this player make non-all-in raises many times, both thinly for value with bluffs and with his absolute nuts. You just gotta take my word on this as I walk you through my thoughts, because this stood out to me and smelled of something right away. We have this dynamic where he's seen me go for block rejams, both with bluffs and with value, both somewhat thinly as well as with the absolute nuts between the two of us multiple times in the past. Since I am not capped here, I suspect that he would be very tempted to include 10-7 into a smaller raise here, because it would both protect his straights that wants to raise thinly here, as well as 10-7 beats every single one of my full houses here. With our dynamic, he wouldn't really lose any value from some of my boats by raising smaller. He would also give me a chance to rebluff with, let's say, Queen 7, for example. It's a decent candidate. And I think he's smart enough to realize this. Another point is, in theory, there might even be some 8x hands that would shove here. Like something like 7-8 would kind of make sense to add into a river jam range here in order to, in lack of fancier language, to kind of fuck with my bluff catching combos here. But I just don't buy that in practice. If you had something like 7-8 here, I think he would just look at this 20% pot bet and expect me to value bet worse. 7x, like a7, king7, queen7, jack7, as well as having some bluffs. He would just be happy to call, or at least not find a jam with an 8 within 10 seconds. Until proven otherwise, at least, I don't buy it from this player. Number 3, I've seen him actually 3 months earlier make a blocker bluff in another heads-up hand. It was about the same stack depth, where I made another block bet with a small boat that time on the river in a similar spot, and he turned top 2 pairs into a bluff jam. I don't necessarily like my line in that hand. I won't really go over it too much, but the memory of that bluff definitely came to my mind here. There are some decent potential blocker combos available here as well, like 10-9 might get here this way a good amount of the time, 10-6 sometimes, maybe even some shitty like 7x, like 7-5 through 7 deuce that doesn't really beat any of my 7x value bets. If he's really crazy, maybe even some bear 9 or 10x, but that's a bit wishful. With all the pieces together, I don't really care what the solver says here, because it's not that relevant. Whenever I'm able to think clearly on specific reads when it comes to the villain I'm playing against, I like acting on it. If I'm wrong, which I obviously will be at times, it's just information, an opportunity to grow my thinking. And if I repeat that over and over and over again, in the long term, trusting my thinking whenever I'm trying to think clearly and act on it, I will grow. So with all of that thinking pointing in the same direction without being contradictory to a bluff, simply put, with our dynamic, it's almost like he doesn't want me to rejam, right? So either he has 10-7 and think that I won't rejam enough, or he has a bluff. I'm gonna make another bold claim because I've basically never heard anyone else say this, which is crazy to me. It's absolutely possible that I am the crazy one, though ranges is kind of an illusion. Even good players don't necessarily really play ranges, especially in unorthodox spots, like this spot, because of their reads, the dynamics, timings, spontaneous thoughts and impulses that will arise with different combos, or even at different times a day, since we aren't objective robots. If I am right, though, about how he view our dynamic, that he would go for a small raise with a nutted combo like 10-7 rather than jam to get calls from some of my straights, get worse boats to jam themselves, as well as allow me to rebluff. If I am right about that, combined with all of my other thoughts that I brought up about this spot, that would mean only one thing. Or have the same thoughts arise spontaneously. Spontaneously. Yeah, I can't say that word, sorry.